What is going on, y'all? I just finished my workout. I'm feeling great. I did some back, I did some shoulders today. I was thinking while I was training, what can I make today's video about? And I think I'm gonna make it about, I know I'm gonna make it about metabolism. Plus I got this cool new blackboard that's like glass and lights up, and I wanted to use that. So here we go, let's dive into metabolism a little bit. Quick little preface here, I'm not a doctor, I don't wanna play one on the internet, but I have worked with hundreds of clients. I've seen how my own body has responded to different metabolic adjustments. I've seen how my clients' bodies have adjusted. So I feel like I've got a pretty good take from an experience basis on how metabolism works within the body as it relates to nutritional manipulations, specifically in tandem with the ketogenic diet as it relates to building muscle and losing body fat. So, first of all, what is metabolism? So metabolism is basically the body's ability to build, lose, expend energy, excrete waste, and function in its environment. Pretty much that's it in a nutshell. Everybody's got different, metabolic adaptations, so to speak. So what works with somebody as it relates to food may not be the same for somebody else. But in a nutshell, metabolism is your body's ability to consume food, aka energy, and then use that energy to build muscle, lose body fat, excrete waste, and function in its environment. So that said, there's basically two metabolic reactions. You can either be catabolic, which is basically tearing down tissue, or you could be anabolic, which is building tissue. And ideally, you want to kind of alternate between a healthy cycle of both of those phases, catabolic and anabolic. It's not really optimal to be in one indefinitely. Like by default, your body's going to be going through a series of the two naturally, but it's kind of advantageous to put yourself in an environment, aka caloric manipulations, training manipulations, so your body can really tap into both of these phases. So what does that look like exactly? So catabolic would be, like losing body fat. So fat loss. So if you're like in a fat loss stage, that's your primary goal. You'd be in a catabolic state. Anabolic, on the opposite end of the spectrum, is building. So like a building muscle phase. And there's right and wrong ways to go about that. And honestly, y'all, I've been just so frustrated lately at the bad information out there from other coaches, other competition prep coaches, other people in general. There's a lot of ignorance around metabolism. It's kind of a tricky subject to understand. There's a lot that I don't know about metabolism, but like I said, I feel like I've learned a lot about working with as many clients as I have, and I want to kind of give y'all some insight into some of the wrong things to do, because if you do this incorrectly and you don't have a healthy relationship between those two and you don't do those two correctly, you can screw up your metabolism and basically lengthen the time it takes you to reach your goal, which is not what we want. So let's dive into kind of right and wrong ways to do both of these and how it affects the metabolism. Alright, so now we have this board and it looks kind of crazy, but just bear with me, I'm trying to explain as best I can. So for illustrative purposes, red equals calories, blue equals muscle mass, so lean tissue, and green, I don't know why I chose green, but green equals body fat, so fat tissue, adipose tissue. So we have three different graphs here. We have the wrong way to lose fat, we have the wrong way to build muscle, and we have the right way to accomplish both that's also good and sustainable for your metabolism long term. So let's talk about losing fat first, because this is pretty applicable to a large part of this audience, I think. I notice this in all genders, all ages, everywhere, but it seems to be most prominent in women especially. And I don't know if it's from bad coaching. I don't know where it comes from, this belief in losing body fat and how it's kind of gotten skewed over the years. But let me just kind of dive into what this represents. So oftentimes, people will go to a coach or they'll just start playing around. They're like, okay, I gotta cut calories. Calories in, calories out. If I work out more and if I decrease my calories, I'm gonna lose body fat. And that's what they do. So say you're eating 2,000 calories, you automatically drop it to like 1,500, you know, just like bam. So you drop calories. That's why there's no gradual. It's like a step down, basically. You just automatically cut calories by several hundred, if not 1,000 calories at a time, which is never a good idea anyways. You should never make huge manipulations like that when you're adjusting and playing around with your calorie intake. But let's just say, you know, let's just use a hypothetical example here. So a middle-aged woman wants to lose body fat, and she's like, okay, I need to consume 1,100 calories. So she's consuming 1,100 calories, and we're not going to talk about ratios. The protein to carb to fat ratio does have an impact here, but let's just save that for another video, and we'll just talk about calories as a standalone. So she cuts calories down to like 1,500, 1,100, whatever, and she loses a little bit of body fat, but then everything seems to stop moving. She doesn't notice any other change in the mirror. She doesn't notice any other decrease in body fat via a DEXA, in-body caliper test, anything. And she's starting to get discouraged, so she cuts calories even more. Again, just like, you know, chops off another 100 to 200 calories. And then maybe a little bit more movement, but at some point she's gonna keep doing that and things are just gonna flatline. Like, she's not going to lose any body fat. So let's look at these graphs here. What's happening that whole time is, since she's in such a caloric deficit, she's going to be losing muscle. When you're that low of a caloric intake, your body is convinced that, okay, I'm in starvation mode. And keto is great for this. Like, your keto is very anti-catabolic, so you're less likely to lose muscle in a caloric deficit with keto. However, you know, if your calories are too low for too long, your body's going to survive and it's going to use your muscle mass. So the muscle is decreasing here. The blue line is dropping, so muscle is going down. Now let's look at the green line, body fat. She might lose some body fat initially when she makes that initial adjustment, but then things are going to level out, they're going to flatline, and then this is where it gets interesting. Body fat actually starts to increase. And what's happening here? So when you take your calories down this low for this long, your body is convinced that it's like food and energy is in such a shortage that anything that we do consume, we're automatically going to store as body fat, because we don't know when more is coming in, so we need to have this storage reserve. So if shit hits the fan, we got something to use. So anything you eat at that point is going to go towards increasing body fat. So it's like very counterintuitive. You would think, you know, dropping your calories, you start losing body fat. If you take it to an unhealthy level, your body will start actually losing muscle while gaining body fat. So this is the worst way to try and lose body fat. If your coach, or if you're playing around with your macros and they automatically drop you down to like 1,100 calories or whatever, you should probably just fire your coach. There's no need to be that low on your calories unless you've been chronically that low for an extended period of time. You have to kind of start there and then work your way back up, which is known as reverse dieting. We'll talk about that later. Or you're like, well, I don't even think there is an or. Like, if you're in a contest prep and you're in a very, very extreme deficit, that doesn't even take, I mean, that's a very finite amount of time, like a week or two. But I wouldn't even go that low. Like, I never take my clients below 1,300 calories, like never, unless I'm watching them and I take them below that for a very, like a week or two in the last little bit of a contest prep. But there's a caveat there, because when I take them below 1,300 calories, they also get like a refeed. So one day of the week they have a ketogenic refeed. So they're getting a huge bump in calories, like an extra 500 calories sometimes. So their body's still getting a fuel source. If you're chronically just consuming 1,100 calories, 1,200 calories, 1,000 calories on a regular basis, then your body is not in a healthy state. So don't do that. An unhealthy way to build muscle is, you know, oftentimes people will just put you at a really high caloric intake. You know, you have to eat more to build more muscle. You know, eat big to get big. We've all heard it. So they'll increase your calories. Okay, you start to gain some muscle, which is the blue line here. Things start to improve. Let's increase calories more, increase calories more. Things keep bumping up. But at some point, no matter how much more, you know, food you intake, your body's not going to just indefinitely keep building more and more muscle. It's going to flatline at some point. Like there's a tipping point in which more food does not equate to more muscle mass. So keep an eye out for when that flatlines, because at that point you're not doing anything except increasing your body fat. Like, people get all excited when they're trying to gain and they see the scale go up, they just assume it's all muscle. But what's happening is your body fat is increasing pretty significantly. Once you hit that tipping point, especially in the muscle mass levels out, any increase in the scale, that's just body fat. So it's not really healthy or optimal to just continually add more calories, because things just, when you're at that much of a surplus, for one, the ketogenic diet is a little bit harder to function efficiently, because if you look at what the ketogenic diet is in its core, it's like a starvation diet. Like when you're fasting, for instance, or when you're in a shortage of food, your ketones are higher. So if you're in a surplus, you can definitely build muscle and be in a surplus and gain muscle with keto, but there's definitely a tipping point at which more calories, more food, more fat, more protein doesn't equal more muscle, and therefore it's just no good. So let's dive deep into this model, which looks kind of crazy. I'm gonna explain, but this is what I do myself. This is what I advocate for my clients. This is what I recommend everybody do, because it's sustainable, it's healthy, it helps reset your metabolism at a healthy baseline each time you transition through it. So let's just look at the red line first. Let's look at calories. All right, so calories, let's just say they're starting at 3,000 calories. And again, these are kind of like just round numbers, and we'll just play around with it and make it easy for illustrative purposes. But let's say your goal is to lose body fat. So you start at 3,000 calories. See, there's no automatic step down with this model. There's no just drastic decrease in calories. It's a very gradual, slow turn. So we'll gradually decrease calories, maybe by as little as 25 calories a week, 50 calories a week, probably no more than 75, 100 calories a week, but very, very gradual. And then we'll just gradually taper that down. While we're gradually dropping those calories, the body fat is going down pretty substantially. Muscle mass, especially with keto, is not really dropping down that much. It may dip slightly, but there's no massive decrease in lean muscle tissue, which is good. That's what we want. You have to expect a little bit of muscle loss, or at least maintenance when calories are in a deficit. You can't really go into a cut anticipating on building muscle, because you need to have the building blocks in order to build up tissue. So, it's okay to lose a little bit of muscle if your primary goal is to lose body fat. It's kind of like a trade-off. They compete for one another. So your calories are dropping, body fat's dropping pretty substantially, muscle mass is staying pretty consistent, maybe slight dip, but nothing too extreme. Then you get to, your body fat goal, or you have your competition, or maybe you don't reach that body fat goal, but you've kind of set a tick mark. You set a baseline as far as, okay, at a healthy intake of food, this is where I'm at. You don't want to keep dropping calories below that. Like I said, I don't take my clients very low, like 1.4 thousand, so 1,400 calories, 1,300 as the floor. And then once you hit that floor, you start increasing them back up, reverse dieting. Even if you haven't reached your goal, don't go below that point, because each time you go through this cycle, you'll get a little bit leaner. And each time we'll reset that baseline at a better level. So just keep going through here. So you hit that floor, you start increasing calories again. What happens? Muscle starts increasing. Muscle, especially if you're training hard. If you're training heavy, if you're stimulating the muscle, it's going to want to grow. You start adding more energy into your system. It's going to take that. It's going to be anabolic. It's going to build tissue. And with that, a little bit of fat is going to come. You can't indefinitely stay at a very low body fat percentage year round, so it's going to start increasing as well. A little bit of healthy body fat is a good thing. And then let's say you get up to 3.2 thousand or 3.5 thousand. So basically you've increased your starting point, your baseline, by 200 calories, 500 calories from what it was in the beginning. At that point, you have more muscle, you have lower body fat starting out here than when you did at the very beginning. So each time you cycle through this, you're basically resetting what your baseline starting point is for all values. Your muscle's starting out higher, your calories are starting out higher, so you've got more runway in which to taper calories going forward, and you have a little bit less body fat starting out. So next time you cycle through it and you drop calories, you'll be able to get to a lower body fat percentage than you were here, and you'll be able to do so at a higher caloric intake than you were here. So each time you're just resetting that needle at a better, more favorable level. And that is what I would recommend doing. That's how you make dieting sustainable. That's how you make your composition goals sustainable, whether that is to build muscle or lose body fat. Don't get stuck in a rut doing one of these other things. It's not healthy to definitely do one too extreme for far too long, or the other. Find something that's sustainable, cycle through, and just to kind of give you an idea of what this timeline might look like. It might take, like, for using myself as an example, I started my last competition prep. It took me 4.5 months to get from here to here. And then it's taken me, like I normally take, 2.5 years off in between competitions, but a good healthy level is, 2 times or 3 times what it took you to cut. So if it took you 4.5 months here, you might want to, increase these calories for, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, then cycle back down. But again, there's no laddering effect of your caloric intake. It's all very gradual. Like, you need to be able to see at what point your body changes, at what manipulation your body gets a response. So that's all I've got to say about that. It's kind of a high level view of metabolism, building muscle, losing body fat. Hope you learned something. Let me know if you like more of these videos, and I'll make sure they come. Let me know how you like my blackboard. I like it. So yeah, see y'all tomorrow.